Modular homes are junk. They fall apart. Banks won't touch them, and you'll regret it in 5 years. That's what you keep hearing, right? From contractors, from Facebook groups, from that one uncle who knows a guy whose cousin bought a modular and the whole thing leaked and now it's worth nothing. And honestly, I get why people believe it, because when you see a house rolling down the highway wrapped in plastic like a giant burrito, it doesn't exactly scream quality craftsmanship. It screams temporary, it screams cheap, it screams this thing is going to fall apart the first time a storm rolls through. But here's what nobody's telling you. The data says the exact opposite. The failure rates, the build quality, the resale values, all of it points to modular being as good or better than stick-built in almost every measurable category. And the reason you keep hearing this lie has absolutely nothing to do with the homes themselves. It has everything to do with who makes money when you build. So let's pull this thing apart. Let's look at the actual failure rates. Let's compare real costs, not YouTube thumbnail costs. And let's figure out when modular makes sense and when it's an absolute disaster waiting to happen. Because the answer isn't what you think. Let's start with the stigma, because that's really what we're dealing with here, not facts. Stigma. And the stigma goes all the way back to the 70s and 80s when mobile homes and single wides were flooding the market. Cheap construction, particle board walls, metal siding that rusted out in 10 years. People bought them because they were affordable and then watched them depreciate like cars. Within a decade, they were worth half of what you paid. So in the American psyche, anything that shows up on a truck is automatically garbage. Doesn't matter if it's built to the same code as a site-built home. Doesn't matter if it's inspected 3 times before it ever leaves the factory. It arrived on wheels, so it must be a trailer. And that confusion still exists today. I've had people ask me, dead serious, isn't a modular home just a double wide? No, it's not. A modular home is built to the International Residential Code, the exact same code as the stick-built house going up next door. A manufactured home, which is what a double wide actually is built to HUD code. Different standards, different inspections, different product entirely. But that visual, that image of a house on a flatbed, it sticks. And contractors know it sticks, because here's the thing. A stick-built home keeps a framing crew, a roofing crew, a siding crew, an electric crew, and a plumbing crew busy for 6 to 9 months. That's a lot of labor hours. That's a lot of invoices. A modular home, the factory does 90% of the work. The site crew shows up, sets the modules on the foundation, ties them together, hooks up utilities, and they're done in 3 weeks. You do the math. If you're a contractor, which one do you want to sell? So yeah, they've got opinions, strong opinions, and those opinions get repeated in lumber yards, on job sites, at family barbecues, until everyone just accepts it as truth. But let's talk about what's actually true. The most common thing I hear is this: modular homes use cheaper materials. And I get why it sounds true. You see them wrapped in plastic on the highway. You hear the word factory, and your brain immediately thinks assembly line, mass production, cost cutting. But here's what those contractors don't mention. Modular homes are built indoors, in a controlled environment, with the same materials you'd buy at the same lumber yard for a stick-built home. The difference is those materials aren't sitting outside getting rained on for 3 months while the framing crew is behind schedule. According to the Modular Building Institute's 2025 report, defect rates in factory-built homes run between 2 and 4%. You know what the defect rate is for site-built homes? 8 to 12%, and the biggest reason is weather exposure and labor variability. Think about it. When you build on site, you're dealing with rain delays, frozen ground, lumber sitting in the mud, crews working in 95-degree heat or 30-degree cold. You're dealing with framers who didn't sleep well, who are rushing to get to the next job, who maybe aren't following the plans exactly because this is how we've always done it. In a factory, the wood is stored inside. The cuts are made on machines with tolerances tighter than any carpenter can hit with a circular saw. The walls are framed, squared, and inspected before they move to the next station. And at every stage, there's a third-party inspector walking the line. Most people don't realize this, but modular homes get inspected more than stick-built homes. You've got factory inspections during construction. You've got a state inspector who certifies the modules before they leave the plant. And then you've got your local building inspector who checks everything again once it's set on your foundation. Stick-built, you get one final inspection. Maybe a rough-in inspection if your county requires it. That's it. So if we're talking about quality control, the factory wins. It's not even close. Now let's talk about the thing everyone actually cares about: cost. because this is where the myths really take off. You see videos on YouTube with titles like, "I built a modular home for 80K," and people think that's the real number. Spoiler, it's not. Here's the reality. In 2026, a modular home is going to cost you somewhere between $120 and $180 per square foot. That's for a decent mid-grade build. Not builder-grade garbage, not luxury finishes, just a solid, livable home. A comparable stick-built home in most metro-adjacent markets, you're looking at $180 to $240 per square foot. And in high-cost labor markets like California, Colorado, the Pacific Northwest, add another $50 per square foot to both of those numbers. So yeah, modular is cheaper, but it's not $80K for a whole house cheaper. It's I saved $40K to $70K on a 1,500 square foot home cheaper, which is still real money. But you've got to go in with realistic expectations. Here's why modular costs less. Labor. In 2026, if you can even find a framing crew in rural Tennessee or Montana or South Carolina, you're paying them $35 to $50 an hour, and they're booked out for months. Factory labor. The modular plant is paying their workers $18 to $25 an hour, and those workers are building homes year-round, rain or shine. That labor arbitrage is where your savings come from. Not cheap materials, not cutting corners, just efficiency. But modular has its own costs that nobody talks about until you're already in too deep. Delivery costs. If you're more than 200 miles from the factory, you're looking at $15K to $30K just to get the modules to your land. And if your site is hard to access, narrow roads, low bridges, tight turns, that number goes up fast. I've seen delivery quotes hit $50K for remote mountain properties. Crane costs. Setting a modular home isn't like unloading a couch. You need a crane, a big one. And depending on how many modules you have and how long the set takes, you're looking at 3K to 8Ks. Maybe more if the crane has to come from out of town. And then there's site prep. This is the one that kills people. With a stick-built home, if your foundation is a little off, the crew adjusts, they shim it, they fix it, they make it work. With a modular home, your foundation has to be perfect. And I mean surveyed, leveled, inspected, signed off, perfect. Because those modules are built to within a 1/4 inch tolerance. If your foundation is off by 2 inches, the modules won't mate. And now you're paying the crane to sit there while a concrete crew scrambles to fix it. I've seen $8K foundation jobs turn into $18K because the site wasn't ready. So yes, modular is cheaper, but it's cheaper if you do everything right. If you don't, those savings disappear real fast. Now let's talk about the hidden costs of stick-built, because contractors love to quote you a clean number and then act surprised when the change orders start rolling in. According to data from the National Association of Home Builders, the average stick-built home racks up $12K to $18K in change orders. That's things like, oh, we hit rock and need to blast the foundation, or the lumber price went up, or you wanted outlets on that wall. That's extra. Weather delays. If it rains for 2 weeks and your framing crew can't work, you're still paying interest on your construction loan. That's carrying costs. And in a high-rate environment with construction loans sitting at 7% to 8%, every extra month costs you real money, labor no-shows. Good luck finding a crew that shows up on time every time for 6 straight months. It doesn't happen. And every delay pushes your move-in date further out, which means more rent, more storage fees, more chaos. Modular doesn't have those problems. The factory builds on a schedule. Your modules show up on the day they say they'll show up. The set takes 2 to 5 days, and you're weather tight in a week. That predictability has value, especially in 2026, when labor is impossible to find and lumber prices are still bouncing around like a lottery ball. Okay, now here's the part that blows up most modular deals before they even start. Financing. Because here's the thing, most lenders will treat a modular home exactly like a stick-built home if it's on a permanent foundation and it meets Fannie Mae guidelines. If those two things are true, you can get a conventional loan, an FHA loan, a VA loan, whatever you qualify for. But, and this is a huge but, a lot of small local banks and credit unions don't have experience with modular. They see factory built on the paperwork and they panic. They either deny the loan outright or they price it 1% to 2% higher because they think it's riskier. It's not riskier. The default rates on modular homes are actually slightly lower than stick-built according to Freddie Mac's loan performance data. But perception is reality in lending, and if your loan officer has never done a modular deal, they're going to make your life difficult. Now the good news, if you can find a lender who knows modular, the process is actually smoother than stick-built. Because with a construction to permanent loan, the lender is worried about timeline risk. What if the build takes 12 months instead of 6? What if the builder goes bankrupt halfway through? With modular, the timeline is predictable. The factory says 8 weeks, and 8 weeks later, your modules are ready. The lender loves that. And because the build phase is so short, you're paying interest on the construction loan for 2 to 3 months instead of 6 to 9 months. I pulled 2025 data from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and modular buyers paid an average of 0.3% more in interest than stick-built buyers in the same credit band. But they closed 60 days faster, which saved them $4K to $7K in interest during construction. So yeah, you might pay a little more on rate, but you save it back in time. So if the quality is there and the cost is competitive and financing is doable, why do so many modular projects still fail? That's what we're getting into next. Because the problem isn't the home. The problem is the 4 mistakes buyers make before the truck even shows up. And if you don't know what they are, you're going to be one of the horror stories people share in those Facebook groups. Let's talk about how to not screw this up. All right, so you're sold on modular. The quality makes sense. The cost makes sense. You've found a lender who's done this before. You're ready to pull the trigger. And then your project implodes, not because the home was bad, but because you didn't know about the 4 things that kill modular deals before the modules even leave the factory. Let me walk you through them, because if you skip even one of these, you're going to lose money, lose time, or lose the deal entirely. Number 1, site prep hell. This is the silent killer, and it's the one that catches everyone off guard because it sounds so simple. Just pour a foundation, right? Wrong. Your foundation needs to be perfect, not good enough, not the crew said it looks fine. I mean surveyed, leveled, inspected, and signed off by an engineer, because those modules are built in a factory to tolerances tighter than anything you'll find on a job site. We're talking 1/4 inch precision. If your foundation is off by 2 inches, the modules won't mate, the walls won't line up, the roof panels won't seal, and now you've got a 150K home sitting on a flatbed in your driveway while a concrete crew jackhammers your foundation and starts over. I've seen this happen more than once. A couple in North Carolina bought a beautiful 3-bedroom modular, paid a local crew $8K to pour the slab. Crew said it was done. Modules showed up. The crane operator set the first module, went to set the second one, and it was 2.5 inches off. Wouldn't bolt together. They had to pay the crane to leave, pay to have the slab ground down and re-leveled, pay the crane to come back. By the time it was done, that 8K foundation cost them 18K, and they lost 3 weeks. So here's what you do. You hire a foundation crew that has done modular before. You have the site surveyed before the pour. You have it surveyed again after the pour, and you don't let the modules leave the factory until your local building inspector has signed off on that foundation. I know it sounds like overkill. It's not. It's the difference between a smooth set and a financial disaster. Number 2, zoning and permitting. This is the silent deal killer. The one nobody thinks about until it's too late, because here's the thing. Modular homes are built to IRC code, the International Residential Code, the exact same code as stick-built homes. In theory, every county in America should permit them exactly like a stick-built home, in theory. In reality, some counties still treat modular homes like manufactured housing. They lump them in with mobile homes and single wides, and they ban them in residential zones. Or they allow them, but only with special use permits that take 6 months to approve and cost $5K in fees. I've seen buyers in rural Virginia, rural Oregon, parts of Texas spend $25K on plans and deposits, only to find out their county won't permit a modular home on their land, and that deposit, non-refundable. So here's what you do before you even talk to a modular manufacturer. You call your county building department and you ask one very specific question. Do you permit IRC compliant modular homes in residential zones? Not, can I build a modular home? Because the person answering the phone might think you're asking about a manufactured home, and they'll say no. You say IRC compliant modular. And if they hesitate, if they say, let me check, if they say, we treat those differently, you've got a problem. And you need to figure it out now, not after you've signed a contract. Some counties require an engineer's stamp on the foundation plans. Some require a special inspection for the module tie-downs. Some require a wind certification even though the home was already certified at the factory. It's bureaucratic nonsense, but it's nonsense that can delay your project by months or kill it entirely. So get ahead of it. Number 3, delivery logistics. This is the one nobody warns you about until the truck is sitting at the end of your driveway and the driver is shaking his head. Modular homes are big. We're talking modules that are 14 feet wide, 60 feet long, and 13.5 feet tall. They get delivered on flatbed trailers pulled by semi-trucks, and those trucks need space. If your land is down a narrow road, across a low bridge, under power lines, or around tight curves, the delivery cost doubles, or the deal dies. I talked to a guy in Vermont who bought land up a winding mountain road. Beautiful property, perfect for a modular home. He got quotes, picked a manufacturer, signed the contract, and then the transport company came out to scout the route. They took one look at the road and said, no, too narrow, too many switchbacks. The trailer wouldn't make the turns, and even if it could, there were power lines crossing the road at 12 feet. His modules were 13.5 feet tall. He could have paid the power company $15,000 on to raise the lines temporarily. He could have paid for a police escort and road closure, but by the time he added it all up, it was $35,000 just to get the modules to his land. His whole budget was blown. So here's what you do. Before you sign anything, you have the transport company scout the route. Not just look at it on Google Maps, actually drive it, measure the bridges, check the clearances, make sure the truck can get in and out. And if your land is remote, if it's hard to access, if there's any doubt at all, you factor that cost into your budget up front, because finding out after the fact is how you lose your deposit. Number 4, the set crew disaster. Here's what most people don't realize. The modular company builds your home. They do not set it. Setting the home is on you. You hire the crane, you hire the foundation crew, you hire the tie-down crew, you hire the guys who connect the modules and seal the seams. And if those crews aren't coordinated, if they don't show up on the same day, if the crane gets there and the foundation isn't ready, your $180,000 home sits in a field racking up storage fees. I've seen modules sit for 2 weeks because the buyer didn't realize the crane crew and the set crew were 2 different companies. The crane showed up, set the modules on the foundation, and left. The set crew showed up 3 days later to bolt everything together. And in the meantime, it rained. Water got into the open seams. Now there's a moisture problem that didn't need to exist. So here's what you do. You create a timeline. You get all the crews on the same page before the modules leave the factory. You have the foundation ready and inspected. You have the crane scheduled. You have the set crew scheduled for the same day or the next day. You have the utility connections roughed in and ready to hook up. This is project management, and if you're not good at project management, you hire a general contractor who is, because a modular home isn't a turnkey product, it's a kit, a really high quality kit, but you still have to assemble it, and if you don't have a plan, it's going to cost you. Okay, so now you know the 4 killers. Let's talk about when modular actually makes sense, because it's not for everyone, and pretending it is just sets people up for disappointment. You should go modular if you're in a high-cost labor market. California, Colorado, Pacific Northwest, places where you can't find a framing crew for under $50 an hour and they're booked out for 6 months. That's where the factory labor arbitrage really shows up. You're saving $40,000 to $70,000 just on labor. You should go modular if you have land with clear access and utilities roughed in. If the power, water, and septic are already at the property line and a semi-truck can get to your site without drama, modular is a home run. You should go modular if you need to move in fast. Job relocation. Aging parent who needs to move in with you. A land lease with a deadline. Modular gets you weather tight in weeks, not months. That speed has real value. And you should go modular if you can get a construction loan or you can pay 50% upfront, because if you're financing, you need a lender who knows what they're doing. And if you can't find one, you're going to get quoted rates that make no sense. Now, when should you go stick-built? If your land is difficult to access. If it's up a mountain, down a dirt road, across a creek, modular just got expensive. You're paying for delivery, you're paying for escorts, you're paying for road permits. At that point, stick-built might actually be cheaper. If you want endless customization during the build. With modular, you pick your floor plan, you pick your finishes, and that's it. Once the modules are in production, you can't change your mind. With stick-built, you can walk the site every week and say, actually, let's move that window or let's add a door here. You'll pay for it, but you can do it if you're in a low-cost labor market, rural South, Midwest, places where you can still find a good framing crew for $25 an hour and they'll start next month. In those markets, the labor savings of modular disappear, and you might actually save money going stick-built. And if you don't have a finished foundation pad ready to go, because modular demands precision, if you're not ready, the project stalls, and stalling costs money. Here's the 3-question test. Answer these honestly, and you'll know if modular is right for you. Question 1. Is your land accessible by a semi-truck with a 60-foot trailer? If you're not sure, the answer is probably no, and you need to find out before you spend a dime. Question 2. Can you get a foundation poured and inspected in 8 to 12 weeks? Because that's how fast the factory is going to build your home. If your local crews are backed up, if your county inspector only comes out once a month, you've got a timing problem. Question 3. Do you have a lender who's done modular before? Not someone who says, yeah, we can probably figure it out. Someone who's closed modular loans and knows the paperwork. If you don't have that, you're going to waste months getting pre-approved only to find out they won't actually fund the deal. If you answered no to any of those, modular just got a lot harder. Not impossible, but harder. And that's the whole point. Modular homes aren't worse than stick-built. They're not better either. They're different. They require planning. They require precision. They require you to know what you're doing before the modules leave the factory. If you do it right, you save money, you save time, and you end up with a home that's built to the same code with better quality control and a faster timeline than anything you'd get on site. If you do it wrong, you're the guy in the Facebook group posting, "I wish I'd just gone stick-built." Remember that contractor I mentioned at the start? The one telling you modular is junk? He's not lying because he's evil. He's lying because his business model depends on 6-month builds. Modular cuts him out of 80% of the labor. The factory does the framing, the roofing, the insulation, the drywall. He shows up, sets the modules, connects utilities, and he's done. That's 3 weeks of work instead of 6 months, so yeah, he's got opinions. And those opinions get repeated until everyone believes them. But the data doesn't lie. The Modular Building Institute tracks this stuff. The resale values on modular homes match stick-built homes in the same neighborhood. The insurance rates are the same, the appraisals are the same, the only difference is how they're built. And in 2026, with labor shortages, with interest rates sitting at 6 to 7%, with stick-built timelines stretching to 12 plus months, modular is one of the smartest plays in the market, if you do it right. So here's what you do next. Step 1, call your county zoning office, ask about IRC compliant modular homes, ask about permit timelines, ask about foundation requirements, get all of that information before you talk to a manufacturer. Step 2, get pre-approved for a construction loan, not with just any lender, with a lender who's done modular deals. Ask them how many they've closed. Ask them what the process looks like. If they can't answer, find a different lender. Step 3, have your land surveyed. Make sure there's clear access for a semi-truck. Make sure utilities can be brought to the site. Make sure there are no easements or deed restrictions that would block a modular build. Step 4, get quotes from 3 modular manufacturers. Compare their timelines, their warranties, their delivery costs, and make sure you're comparing apples to apples. $120 per square foot quote with builder grade finishes is not the same as a $150 per square foot quote with upgraded cabinets and countertops. And step 5, budget for the site work. Foundation, crane, set crew, utility connections. Don't assume it's included. Ask for line item pricing and add 10% for contingencies because something always comes up. Do those 5 things and you'll know if modular makes sense for you. And if it does, you'll be one of the people posting, "This was the best decision we made," instead of, "I wish someone had warned me."